model Toyotas. You won't find a better car at a better price with better service anywhere.
Welcome to the Turk and Raz podcast. My name is Turk.
And my name is Raz. Well, it's the new year and we're back with our first retro roundtable, and you could say it's a blast from the past, but it also is the future.
What? This is heavy duty.
Yes. I've been excited to do this one for quite a while, and we've kind of had our podcast kind of surround this film in a way, like we've always thought about this film ever since we started podcasting. So I think that it's only appropriate that we should do it right away.
Yes, I agree. We are doing Back to the Future, the all-time classic.
Yes, it is.
Back to the Future is an American science fiction film directed by Robert Zemeckis, and it was written by Zemeckis himself and his buddy Bob Gale. It stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, and Thomas F. Wilson. It was released in July 3rd, 1985 by Universal Studios. Back to the Future was a critical and commercial success. The budget was $19 million at the time. It was like $4 million over budget with Michael J. Fox, but we'll get into that a little bit later. It would go on to earn $381 million at the box office worldwide, and it was the biggest movie of that year. The movie was praised by the critics, especially on the story, the humorous elements, and the cast, particularly Fox, Lloyd, Thompson, and Glover. It received multiple award nominations and won an Academy Award, 3 Saturn Awards, and a Hugo Award. I don't know what a Saturn Award is. I don't know what a Hugo Award is, but it must be special because it's Hollywood. And of course, Huey Lewis in the News got lots of success with The Power of Love. It is a fantastic track. Back to the Future is considered by critics and audiences to be one of the greatest science fiction films and among the best films ever made. Totally agree.
I agree too.
Back to the Future trilogy is one of the best trilogies.
It is.
The film was followed by 2 sequels, Back to the Future 2 in 1989 and Back to the Future Part 3, 1990. Due to its effect on pop culture, like many IPs like Star Wars, etc., it became a multimedia franchise which would included games, theme parks, rides, an animated series, which I actually checked out back in the day, and a stage musical, so I'm sure you saw that, right, Turk? Its endearing popularity has prompted numerous books about its production and documentaries and commercials. They have some pretty awesome commercials. I think they had some for the Super Bowl that were pretty fantastic with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Let's get into the first time we saw it and what our impression was and what its effect is on us. You go ahead first, Turk.
First time I watched this was in the theater. I went and saw it with a friend, and my friend's parent had this dark forest green 5-liter Ford Mustang with a T-roof, I believe. And the interior was white. White leather seats, white doors, white everything. Everything was white. And I was just like, holy shit. And I sat in the back of this thing, and it was so bright you couldn't look inside the car because it was too white. But I just remember the car ride there. And it was really great. But yeah, it was a great first watch. And I believe after we went and watched the movie across the street, there was an arcade. So we hit up the arcade after. So it was pretty cool.
Those were good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with this movie, was this something that was kind of like in your rewatch when you were like in your youth and growing up into like your teenager and adulthood? Is this something that you always kind of went back to?
Not a lot. But I mean, here and there every few years, I would definitely check it out again. Yeah.
Because this is one of those movies that it seemed like, along with like E.T., Star Wars, it was part of like movie staples that you had to watch. Like it just seemed like growing up in the 80s, Back to the Future was just tied into it and then kind of going further.
Yeah, this movie is historic in my opinion. It's something that should never be touched or played with. And as long as Robert Zemeckis is alive, we know that that'll probably never happen. So that's good.
Yes, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale both have stated that they have the rights. So according to them, as long as they're alive, there should be no remakes or no more sequels.
That makes me very happy.
Though Christopher Lloyd would love to do one more where him and Marty go into ancient Rome, but that'd be kind of interesting concept. But I think it's just, I'm glad they left it at 3 and that's it.
Yeah, like let's be honest, we've seen enough shit now with Hollywood remaking everything. You just know what they would do to this franchise.
For myself, this is another movie that I remember growing up and going to the theater, but I definitely remember watching it at home, either through on cable TV or renting it. It's just one of those movies you just can't help. And also, at the time, Michael J. Fox was really popular with Family Ties, so you couldn't help but kind of be excited seeing him in this time travel movie, which this movie, in a way, yes, we know time travel is not really plausible in the logic of it and the physics of it, but this movie does it in a really good way where it's very consistent, because you watch a lot of time travel movies, they even in the movie inside itself, they have a hard time staying consistent in what they establish, where this movie, they establish kind of the rules and their regulations and how it works, and they kind of stick to it throughout not only this movie but throughout the whole trilogy. So this is a movie definitely that I grew up with. It's part of my pop culture. And okay, but with that said, now we did our rewatch as we do these. What is your feeling? How does it impact you now today that being an older person, you know, has lived more life? Does it feel the same or what?
Yeah, it does. I'm very glad that we still have this film and we don't have a modern version of it. I love it. It takes me back to when I was 9 years old again, watching it for the first time in the theater. I get the same emotions I feel when certain scenes come up, even though I've seen it many times. That ending scene, my heart's pounding. I'm holding my breath, hoping that that Doc Brown can get that wire connected so that Marty can hit that, you know, and go back to the future. It just, you know what's going to happen, but you're still riding that wave, and it feels great to watch it. Yeah, how do you feel watching it today?
Yeah, again, it's always good to watch this movie. Like I try to watch it, you know, I don't watch it every year, but I usually always try to throw it in there sometime every few years. I like to watch it because it's just one of those movies. It's just a treasure trove of goodies, just with like the production, the acting, the atmosphere, and it's set in an earlier time, you know, in the 80s, and there's something very kind of special and I don't know, nostalgic about it. I know that's a word we overuse here, but I enjoyed myself. Like I was actually chuckling a lot to a lot of the antics and stuff. And this is a movie that it's not grossly politically incorrect, but there is some incorrectness, but I think it's actually enduring to the film. So I enjoyed again the rewatch, and I'm sure the next rewatch I will enjoy it again. This is one of those movies I can just always watch and enjoy.
I agree.
With that said, the premise of the movie is basically it's set in 1985. The story follows Marty McFly, played by, you know, Fox, a teenager accidentally sent back to 1955 in a time-traveling DeLorean automobile built by his eccentric scientist friend Emmett Doc Brown. While in the past, Marty inadvertently prevents his parents from falling in love, threatening his existence, and is forced to reconcile the pair and somehow get back to the future. The movie has a lot of thematic themes in it, and one of the main themes is parental relationships and fate. You know, in Back to the Future, it really concerns control and personally being responsible for one's own destiny. And I think this is something that most human beings kind of talk about. You know, when you're a young person, you kind of think about what I'm going to be, how my life is going to be, and then when you're kind of going through it, you're like, where is this going to take me? What's the sign? And I think this is something that is very important to people, is what is our destiny? If I do this, will this change the course? And this movie kind of really has that on display here. You know, like especially in the movie where a situation can be changed even if it seems otherwise impossible to overcome. Like for example, Leah Thompson said the film represents how one moment can have a significant and lasting impact on a person's life, and I think that can really play out to people's lives in their everyday. As I said, it's a time travel movie. You can't but help to think that both Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis were heavily influenced for this movie. I'm sure, like, I feel like it feels like there's lots of Wizard of Oz references. There's Doctor Strangelove, there's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then there's Star Wars. So you can see throughout the movie, like, he even poses as Darth Vader, and you hear Star Trek in there. So there's lots of references to, like, science fiction and time travel and space. So it's pretty cool. So definitely H.G. Wells' Time Machine is pretty heavily based in this. Probably you can find it kind of homage there.
You definitely can.
So now let's just break this movie down and how we see it.
Well, the first scene kind of just pans around a room and you hear the ticking of clocks, and so right away it's a great opening because you know what you're getting into right away. This movie's about time, and that was a great way of doing it. How they show the clocks and they transition into Doc's inventions, his poorly made inventions, and then it pans across the TV and you see like this reporter talking about stolen plutonium, so you're like, uh-oh, what's going on? The beginning of this film does a great job of like just encapsulating the whole movie within the first few minutes, because basically you see like Marty's playing the guitar right away. Doctor sets the clock back 25 minutes, meaning going back in time. The plutonium is under the bed, is the power source, and Doc is an inventor and also has a dog named Einstein. So like, it just the whole movie is like right there in the beginning.
Well, he has pictures framed of like Isaac Newton in his house. He even refers to these great inventors. So it's pretty funny. It's pretty heavy in there. And I like the fact that what was Marty thinking? What would have came out of him turning the amp like that and with the guitar? Like, what was his?
Well, I've never seen a speaker that big.
He wasn't even wearing ear protection.
No.
Like, it was crazy.
He had to have known he was going to get blown across the room.
He had to. Yeah. Would even like blow out his eardrums.
Yeah, that was one big speaker.
Like, maybe that's like a what if movie where Marty loses his hearing and he has to go back in time to save his hearing.
That's right.
You see Marty go to school because he's late for school because of the time. You see Marty on the skateboard where he uses vehicles. It's hilarious because like, who wouldn't notice someone like latched onto you with their skateboard?
Yeah, definitely.
And everybody, like, he even does it with a cop car when he's like leaving from school. This is where the movie really establishes Marty and kind of his parents because he's late. And then with Principal Strickland there by James Tolkien, he catches him, and right off the bat he starts calling him a slacker, but he also refers to him just like his dad. Your dad was a slacker. And then we also meet Claudia Wells, who plays Jennifer, who looks pretty delicious, so 10 toes up to Claudia Wells back in the day. You see they have a pretty cool relationship. She turns out to be his wife eventually, and then you learn that when Strickland tells him you're not going to melt to anything, and like Marty's like, well, that's about to change. So he does his audition and it doesn't go too well, and then Claudia's like, okay, Marty, and this is where I'm really getting here, is that she's like, well, why don't you send your tape as a demo? And he kind of says, I don't know, like, what if they don't like it? I don't know if I can handle that type of rejection. Well, this is something that it's a learned behavior from his father, as we see when we get to where we meet Biff, who crashed the car that Marty was going to use on the weekend, but which he would not tell his mom because he doesn't want his mom knowing that he could be doing a little bit of, a slip and slide camping.
Yeah, I like how Biff complains about the blind spot in the car. He's like, McFly, why didn't you tell me there's a blind spot in the car? Like, oh my God. And he's like, and you got to pay for my dry cleaning. I spilled my beer. He's like, Biff, it's okay. Surely your insurance can cover it. And he's like, my insurance?
Yeah. And it's the best that Biff is his boss.
Oh, it's awesome.
So it's like you're loaning your vehicle, your personal vehicle, to your boss. And poor Marty's just sitting there watching, and then Biff's just looking at him because, Marty's a little bit different than his dad. He has a little bit of that, small man syndrome. He fights back because he sees that his dad doesn't fight back. So that's a great interaction. But then we get introduced to his mom, who we see is a depressed alcoholic. And we see his other siblings, who, the older brother, who's played by that Mark McClurg, who plays Jimmy Olsen in the Superman movie.
Right.
So there's a little bit of connection there.
Right. Yeah.
And you see
he's like a pizza guy,
he's like a pizza guy, right? So, and then like, his dad they're watching TV, and the mom is kind of like, I don't know if I like this Jennifer because she called you. What woman would do that? I would never do that. And then they go into, you know, what most parents always talk about, how they met. And she goes into it and explains about their first kiss and the dance. So she kind of basically unloads what's going to happen in the movie.
She talks at the table about how, you know, girls chasing boys, she would never have done that in her old days and stuff. And she talks about being like this really goody girl and how, you know, the guy should be chasing the girl and whatnot. So just let that sink in, and I'll call back to this again later because I want to call her out on some shit.
So the movie kind of takes us where Marty meets up with Doc Brown at the Twin Pines Mall.
Yes.
That was in Gremlins. They meet and he unveils that time machine, which is modified through a DeLorean. I can't remember. Does he explain why he's a DeLorean?
No, I don't know if he explains why, but you can understand why. Just because of the look of the car, I don't think any other manufacturer at the time would look right like this. Like this car looks like it's a space machine.
Yes, it does. Well,
it's a beautiful introduction to this car too. I believe it's just, you know, coming out of the trailer with all that mist and smoke and stuff. It was awesome.
And then the sliding up doors.
Yeah, the gull-wing doors. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful car.
Yeah, the gull-wing doors. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then it is powered by plutonium, which he swindled from the Libyan terrorists.
Yeah, he told them that he was going to make something for them with the plutonium.
Like a bomb. He was making a bomb with
that's
them.
Right, and then he didn't do it.
He made like a bomb where he put like something, and it was like a dud.
Yeah.
But of course, and you know, so then he takes him through. He sends his dog Einstein, and of course he explains all this to Marty in a really good way, like in a layman's term. He does a really good well, like, you know, 88 gigawatts and all that, and he tells him, and then, you know, of course Marty's like,
Yeah, you mean, Doc, you're telling me that you built the time machine out of DeLorean?
Yeah,
that's right, he did, mofo.
Did you notice on the side of the van it says Doc Brown Enterprises and then 24-hour scientist?
Yeah, 24 hours as a scientist.
Just call him anytime.
And he's trying to flee from these Libyan terrorists and stuff, but he has his name on his van.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then when they find him, he's like, they found me. I don't know how they found me. Your freaking van basically spells out your name, but okay.
Yeah.
Freaking eccentric scientists, eh?
Yeah.
They're too smart for their own good.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
And that's a great scene because he gets shot. And Marty, like, shit is happening. And of course, this takes him to jumping in the DeLorean, of course. And it was a really good way, I thought, the movie to get him in there because his life, he's being fired on by these crazy criminals.
And let's not forget that the car was already set up by Doc Brown to go back in time because he had already set the time on the when he typed it in.
When he first came, when
he showed him how to do it, he's like, here's 1955 or whatever, because Marty didn't type that in. It was already typed in, and he had just reloaded plutonium into the car, so it was all ready to go.
It was ready to go because the reason why Doc Brown was going to 1955 is that at that date that's when he was putting up that picture and he fell and hit his head and
he discovered the flux capacitor. Yes.
So he wanted
and
to go
so
back
Marty, in being scared and running from the Libyans, he takes off and the car hits 88 miles per hour. You know what happens?
He went back to 1955.
Yeah. That was great.
It was a great scene. Great special effects. Exciting. Yeah, it worked really good. And then when he ended up in 1955, and Doc Brown already explained that, you know, where where the mall was, it was all like basically farmland and roads. So it kind of stops right into a barn.
Yeah, that's what I love about this movie. It's so good in the details that it makes sure that it gets everything right. You know, when they're saying something and they actually show you later.
Yeah, because they mentioned the farmer's house where he stopped was the guy that came up with
Peabody.
The Peabody, and of course he actually, when he's fleeing the barn when they're shooting at him, he ends up like
Peabody was into breeding pine trees, right?
Peabody,
and he runs over the trees.
Pine trees. You killed my pine tree.
I loved it.
And then of course he looks like an outer space Martian with the DeLorean, and the little kid has the sci-fi.
Yeah, with the spaceship looking just like the DeLorean.
And typical probably 1955, instead of being really scared, they come and grab their gun. And I like how when you see Marty, look, he's turning into the form of a human already. Shoot him! And the little kid wants to see some blood.
Yeah, that was great.
It's a great scene because when he's walking there, he's seeing something's not going right, and he's coming to terms with like, is this for real? Is this a dream? So when he gets back into kind of town,
Hill Valley,
he's seeing that, you know, there's something doesn't look right here.
The clock is working. The clock tower is working, right?
And just even with like the gas station, you see like these servicemen and Like, you know, he's like, what the heck?
Well, and then you see the mayor.
The mayor,
Like, 'cause
yeah.
they show the mayor's car,
Yeah.
like it's a different mayor,
Yeah.
vote for me, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that mayor? The present day mayor. Was it like Holiday?
Yeah.
Or-
And he ends up meeting him in the diner.
Diner, yeah, he's the guy working in the diner,
Yeah.
so he kind of pushes him on his direction.
It's like, mayor! I loved it. It's great.
And because he's wearing that vest jacket to 1955, I like how they call it.
All throughout the movie, everyone thinks it's a life preserver.
Well, could you blame them?
No.
Yeah.
No, you couldn't.
Because people didn't wear that in 1955.
No, it was all jean jackets.
And that's where he meets his dad.
Yeah.
And he learns that his dad is kind of a piece of shit. And he gets bullied even back then to 1955 by Biff.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's a good scene how he's staring because, you know, he's just like, that's my dad. I think that's what's so brilliant about this show. And I think this movie as a kid, when you're growing up and a young person, it kind of makes you think, what were my parents like? Because you hear the stories from your parents, just like the alcoholic mom is talking about, you know, I never used to do stuff like that. Or, you know, your dad, how did you meet my dad? Because like it's suspect, how did he get hit by the car? What was he doing? And of course, they're pretty vague.
Yeah.
But Marty learns that his dad was a peeping Tom.
Yeah, he was bird watching, all right.
He was definitely bird watching.
He was watching a couple of hooters in the window.
But he wasn't watching his bird close enough because he fell off the tree.
Yeah.
And I know Marty has an encounter with Biff and he's trying, but this is where he follows his dad and he's learning, oh, okay, this is what happened. But inadvertently, he takes his dad's place. And then he wakes up at the house, thinks, oh, it was a dream, and he hears his mom's voice.
Yes.
And says, okay, Marty, eh? And then the light
Oh, she
comes
says
on.
Calvin.
Oh, Calvin.
Right, because of his underwear.
His
It's
underwear,
Calvin Klein.
yeah.
She's like, well, your name's on your underwear.
I find it interesting, why was his pants taken off? Was it by her or the mom?
I'm going to say her. Yeah, Lorraine.
Lorraine,
Yeah.
but why would she?
Why? I don't know, because you're not supposed to go to bed with pants on, I guess. So they just undress you. You're knocked out, and she violated him pretty much.
Well, it's kind of suspect. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure she didn't violate him.
No,
I'm
but I mean,
sure.
like, this took the pants off him. That's what I mean
Yeah.
by violating.
You always
Yeah.
like wonder, like, why is his pants off?
Well, especially got ran over by a car, and you're laying on the
Well,
road
maybe
there.
she was no, but the pants were there because when
Yeah.
the mother called her down, she's like, "Quick, put your pants on." And then you see in the mirror there, like she has kind of this. She's all excited, and he's just like, "What the?"
Trying to tell me that my mother has got the hots for me? Precisely.
And of course, he's like sitting by her, and it's a fun scene at the table, seeing the family, and then
The table scene, I noticed that the older boy there was the older brother from the Wonder Years.
Yep, of course.
And the little girl was actually the girl who idolized Thor in Adventures in Babysitting.
And then after that, of course, Marty, he goes and he's got to track down Doc Brown. Finds him where he's living, and he knocks on his door, and of course...
Mind reading
the
device.
mind reading device, and he's like trying to guess where he's from, eh? And
It doesn't work.
first, Doc Brown kind of doesn't buy him. He just thinks he's just selling something, or goodbye, future boy.
It's until Marty starts telling him, listen, the bump on your head, I know how it happened.
Yeah.
He tells him about that, and he goes, okay, get in here.
He has the camera, because he ends up like kind of showing him footage from there.
Yes.
So that kind of reinforces that this is legit.
Yeah, so basically, he shows him the car, like they go drive out to the car.
Yeah.
He shows him that the actual flux capacitor is working. He's like, oh my god, it works. Like, that's crazy.
But he's out of plutonium.
Plutonium. So he
And-
needs a way to create the 1.21 gigawatts of power.
Yeah, so he basically sets up a cable to generate the power required for travel with a lightning bolt.
Electricity, yeah.
But the thing is, they can't just predict lightning. The week from whatever, the clock tower gets struck. So they know there's a lightning bolt can generate that power he needs.
Yes, and there were some ladies asking for donations to save the clock tower to,
Yeah,
and
before
then Marty had that
time.
piece of paper that
Yeah.
told you what date and time that this lightning struck the tower. So
Exactly.
he had that, yeah.
Yeah. So he has a little bit of time, but then he kind of discovers with his photo that his brother's starting to fade out.
Basically, yeah, because of the interactions between his dad and mom when they were younger, they weren't jiving, so that it seemed like their family was never going to happen.
This kind of goes by the law that, like, Doc Brown kind of, he does go on to describe you should not, okay, it's like, who have you interacted with here? You need to stay here so you don't affect your future. But he already, I like how nonchalantly, well, I ran into my dad and my mom.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, he doesn't really explain that I basically took my dad's spot as the infatuation with his mom, which plays out, so that it's like, okay, well, you got to repair that and get your dad and together with your mom so they can go to the ball and share that first kiss and all that bullshit.
He actually tries to get George to, you know, to ask Lorraine out on a date or take her to the dance, and you know, when those things fail, because Biff always shows up at the wrong time to, you know, to interrupt shit. Basically, he has a revelation that he knows that his dad is a writer. When, you know, when they were talking in the cafeteria and he's writing those little science fiction stories, he says like, okay, like, so then he dresses up in that suit, right? And he goes to scare his dad.
Go back to when he's talking about his science fiction and writing that, because Marty's like, this is something he never knew about his dad. I never knew you wrote. And he's like, well, let's read it. And he's like, well, no, you can't. I don't let anyone read it because I just don't think I can handle that rejection. So it plays back to what Marty himself, and you can see the revelation in Marty's. This is like, well, this is what I'm becoming, and this is what my dad is. And it's like, oh, so you see the movie beautifully kind of sets up that, yes, like he definitely does changes that jeopardizes his future, but then in some ends he has an opportunity to make some little changes where it could set up his parents' future for the better. Okay, so then he spends time, like you said, trying to set his dad up, and he does the Darth Vader with some Eddie Van Halen music.
Yeah, he says, I'm Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. Like, there's some Star Trek there.
He's now determined to, you know, win Lorraine. He's like, Darth Vader from Vulcan visited me. But it makes sense, probably someone like George McFly, who's a science fiction writer, that would be something that would be a huge, like, kind of revelation or omen for him, that I better listen to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Because he's the Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah, because he came to him in the night.
They're basically trying to get him to set up to get him to take her to the dance. So he's trying to help his dad to win his mom over. In a way, actually, it always kind of backfires on Marty, because then they're at the diner and he's gonna, you know, with a little bit of liquid courage from chocolate milk, he's gonna go up to her, but of course Biff comes in there, and Marty tries to run interference, and it turns into a chase scene where it turns into a cool skateboard.
And in the diner scene, like, this is where Marty just makes things worse, because he ends up hitting Biff. That just makes Lorraine even more infatuated with Marty. So it just is even worse for George now.
Isn't he a dream?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
She is, like, she's ready to go.
So,
her uterus is ready to explode.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of leads to Lorraine to ask Marty to the dance, which she follows him to Doc Brown's place. As they're concocting their big plan for the lightning strike and how he can get back there, and she's like, and it's super awkward. Like, it's sweet from her part. Like, I like how Leah Thompson kind of plays it. She's pretty sweet about it and genuine, because she doesn't know that this is her kid. Both Doc Brown and Marty know. When she's talking to Doc and he's at third wheel, because I think we've all been kind of in those situations where we've been the third wheel and we watched our friends trying to kind of get something going, and we're just like, when's this gonna end? So you just see freaking Emmett just like, what the hell, his faces.
Yeah, I like that Lorraine, you know, in the beginning of the movie, she, you know, when she was sitting on the table telling Marty that she had never chased boys and never done anything like that. Now, as this movie is progressing in 1955, Lorraine is doing everything she just told her son she didn't do. She's chasing boys. She followed him to Doc Brown's place.
She
drinks, she smokes, you know, and later in the film, she says she's never, or early in the film, she said she never parked before, but she has parked before. Like, this girl is like horny AF. And so I'd like to just call out her character as a mother.
The light that she's kind of shined on her kids, that she was very conservative, very proper, and she's just your typical teenage human girl in 1955. And just like George McFly, you know, he looks as some dork kind of piece of shit, but he was actually a very creative. So Marty comes up with a pretty interesting plan that he's gonna go to the dance with Lorraine, and he's gonna do a little bit of hibbity happy, some inappropriateness with her.
He's going to make it look good, but obviously not really. My understanding was he was just going to try and force himself on Lorraine, but not really do anything with her, just kind of struggle with her, and then that way George could come in and save the day.
I know that's what the pitch he was selling his dad. Really, if Marty really thought this through, there wasn't much he had to do. His mom is the one that has the hots for the idea of what Marty represents. It's not like Biff, where Biff, you can tell she didn't really like Biff and his advances on her. So Marty is already someone who's a total opposite, where she is infatuated infatuated
Yes, I
with this
agree.
Marty
Yeah.
character. So for him, well, I'm gonna be kind of force my pawn on her. Like, I mean, she was ready. Like, her uterus was ready.
Well, yeah, that perhaps that is true. I was just thinking like maybe he was going to try and be out of character and different towards her, but I don't know. We never got there. So
once they got to the dance, it was pretty apparent that this was harder than he thought it was going to be, because it was really awkward. And then when he's learning, his mom was like, yes, I have parked before.
I'm almost 18.
I'm almost 18. And then she pulls the drink. And I like the callback when he's like, you drink now. And his face is like, he's so uncomfortable. But then the revelations that his mom's drinking and smoking and being naughty. And the things you notice that he's kind of looking at her because she's, her cleavage is out and stuff. And like, you could imagine like he's kind of looking, because this has got to be tough. He only seen his mom when she's like alcoholic, ragged, heavier,
a little bit,
out of shape. So he's seeing her where she's young and youthful and vibrant, and so you can kind of see he's kind of looking, and then she's all, and I still to this day I'm also uncomfortable with this scene. I find it is very, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is funny,
and it is kind of played cute. And then
but then it doesn't work out as planned, right? Like so Marty doesn't end up in the car with her, and Biff ends up.
When she does kiss him, they do kind of pull back. Once she kisses him,
she realizes that it's like kissing her brother, she said.
Which is also odd.
Yes.
Never mind.
It feels like she was. She felt like it was wrong to kiss him. Is basically what she's saying.
Yeah. I know.
Not like she's kissed
her
brother.
But it just sounded kind of funny. It's just like kissing my brother. Like,
it just felt weird to her.
It felt like familia.
Yeah.
But she can't put her foot on it.
That's right.
This is then when Biff comes in.
And so basically replaces Marty in the car. And obviously he does force himself. That's right. The boys stuff Marty in the trunk of the band's car there, and so then he forces himself.
Was it Marvin Berry's car?
Marvin Berry. Yeah.
Chuck Berry's car.
George shows up thinking, oh, it's Marty in the car with Lorraine. He's struggling with her. So I'm going to go and save the day. But then he opens the door and it's Biff. And so then he gets really scared again. And then finally he somewhat stands up. He says, no, Biff, you're not. And then Biff gets out of the car, throws Lorraine down on the ground, and then grabs Biff by the neck or something and is holding him down. And then you can see like the fist of George just starting to clench and finally get some of that confidence that Marty's been teaching him the whole movie. And finally, when he hits him, he knocks him into next Saturday.
Oh, he knocks him.
He knocked him good. Like, that was a great hit. And then sure enough, Lorraine, she falls in love with
she likes high drama, and kind of like violence gets her juices going.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Most women probably do. No, but like when two guys are fighting over you, I mean, she didn't like Biff, but still. Yeah. She liked the hero.
And it's nice that it was bookended with her interaction with Marty, where she's like, it didn't feel right, but then George comes in and it felt, he didn't use a right, he used a left.
Yes, he
felt
did.
Right. And then they get Marty out of the car, but of course Marvin Berry slices his hand, but he's like, I can't play, it's over. And he's like, no, you gotta play, because this is where my parents first kiss and they fall in love. So he's like, well, can you play? So Marty has to replace.
Yeah, he plays guitar.
Yeah. Apparently Michael J. Fox was like, they taught him how to emulate the Chuck Berry, the chords and stuff, so he learned guitar. And I actually think Michael J. Fox can actually play guitar, because I've seen him.
I think he can
in certain instances of playing guitar. And seeing him do it today, battling Parkinson's, is actually pretty awesome.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Wow. Yeah.
So he's playing the guitar, but I always forget about this is the scene where like his parents are at the dance and they're dancing, and of course she asks him, oh, aren't you gonna kiss me? But then that guy cuts in, and then Marty's looking at his picture, because he has his picture, because him and his siblings are starting to disappear, and both his older siblings are gone, and now Marty's starting to be affected, and you see his hands becoming invisible, and the guy's like, are you okay, man? He's like sweaty,
he's like, I can't play.
They keep playing. But
the guy who cut in,
that was the buddy from...
I recognize him.
He's the best friend of Ronald's from Can't Buy Me Love.
Yes, Can't Buy Me Love guy.
Yeah. And he played Hans Klopak in The Burbs.
Yes, I knew I recognized him. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. He kind of cut in there, had a little role cut in there.
Yeah, good for him.
But then McFly comes back in and he pushes him down.
Yeah, like he was waiting for his dad to drum up that confidence again to try and say, no, this girl's mine,
Yeah, and he came and claimed it, and
he did.
Boom, then they let a wet one go.
Yeah.
And then Marty's all back and he's playing, and his pictures is preserving their family lineage and stuff.
Yes. Then he starts playing like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen.
And the kids are like, huh?
But it's an awesome scene because that's the first time I think I heard Johnny Be Good. I used to think as a kid that I'm like, oh, it's Michael J. Fox played Johnny Be Good. Little did I learn that it was. But it's kind of an interesting play here that while he was playing that song, Marvin Berry phones Chuck and he's like saying, you know the sound you're making. And I thought just recently I watched that Elvis movie, how actually like black musicians really did influence Elvis in his music.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
He emulated Took or whatever. And to see this is like, it's funny in the 80s, of course, a white person kind of inspiring a black musician, which is usually the other way around, right? So I was like, only in the 80s, because today I don't think you would do that.
No, you wouldn't. No.
Again, it's done in fun. It's a time.
Oh, totally, it was.
Movie, and that, you know, that's what sometimes these movies are, where the things that they change can impact certain stuff we already know in like pop culture.
Yeah.
But he starts playing and he kind of goes rogue with his Eddie Van Halen shit.
Yeah, people don't know what to do.
And at the end there, his mom is like, well, that was interesting. And then he kind of has this course. She's gonna like, well, I'm gonna get a ride with the real man.
Yeah. And she goes, Marty, that's an interesting name. So you know.
And of course he had to give them a reminder if someone like spilled paint on the floor and lit on fire. What was it, fire? Or he lit on
something about fire.
On the carpet.
Yeah.
And he's like,
go easy on
him. And they're like, that's interesting. Of course, Marty, knowing that he thinks Doc gets killed in the future, he tries to write him a note to let him know that take precautions. But of course, Doc Brown's like, I don't want to know, man. He's very persistent which is funny that he kind of basically goes against it in the later sequels. In this one, he's like, he's like, no, I don't want to know, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Of course, Marty's trying to tell him, and of course they kind of prolong the scene to go back there where in the clock tower he's got to go up there. It's unplugged because the tree fell on the cable.
Yeah, so the tree fell on the cable and it disconnected everything, so he had no choice but to run up there with a rope and send a rope down to Marty so that he could tie the cable back up, and he does, and he gets back into the car and he's yelling at Doc about this whole like being shot in 1985, but of course it's storming and he can't hear anything. So he gets back into the car and he takes off, and all of a sudden the cable's about 6 inches too short, so he has no choice but he pulls it harder, he disconnects it down to the ground, and then he uses a cable and he basically swings down to the ground.
Hey, shout out to Doc Brown for being very fearless, swinging all the way down on a freaking like electric cable.
Yeah.
In a storm where there's a lightning storm and raining. And then of course the DeLorean theme they play out throughout the whole trilogy always stalls on him, doesn't start.
Yeah, so before Marty does take off, he does set the clock back 10 minutes just so he has enough time to warn Doc Brown.
Wouldn't he actually do it like even days earlier if he could? Like 10 minutes is not buying yourself a lot of time.
I suppose. Yeah, it was cutting it too close, but whatever.
But I mean, I know
fine.
for the film, but if you're like thinking about it, like, is he cut a little close to 10 minutes?
Exact. No, it was great. Finally, he's, got the car started after being frustrated, and he's taken off, and he's seeing Doc struggling getting the wires connected, and he's like just in time. Doc gets him connected, and he hits the wire, so he's good.
And kudos to like Christopher Lloyd with his really dramatic animated acting, because he's really good, like. And he's all over the place and like it's frantic. You could feel the anxiety with the time clicking because you see the car come in there. It's hit like 60 miles per hour and he's still got to swing down and connect the cable.
Yeah, this is where, like I said, I was holding my breath and my heart was racing because I know the ending, but it still gets you.
Yeah, it still does. It works. Like how many times you see it and you're like, oh man, he's gonna do it. I know he does it, but oh my god, that's
maybe this one time I watch it, he doesn't do it.
Yeah, maybe this time, you're just waiting for it not to happen, which you know it's going to.
Yeah,
but he does it, and then Marty goes back to the future.
No, it was a great climax of the show.
Great climax, and then when he comes back, and I like how everything looks like what he left it off, and even with the bum on the park bench.
Yeah.
And then he races there to go see and warn Doc, but again, the car dies, so he's got to run there. So
that's really, where the 10 minutes should have
20
been
minutes, like 30 minutes. Yeah, should have been 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I could have thought. But he's a teenager, right?
Yep.
He's there too late, and he watches himself go to the past.
Which was actually, I love this because you get to see a different view of the car going through into the, like hitting the 88 miles an hour, and you get to see what happens to the Libyans after, right? Because before you don't. So that was cool.
Yeah, they basically take themselves out. I thought I remembered it wrong that I thought their van blew up.
Oh yeah, it just kind of crashes
in, and that's the end of them. So you figured, why are you guys standing around there? The Libyans could be still alive.
They could be.
And this is one of the things I really love about the Back to the Future movie, especially the second one, where you get to see different takes of scenes that you already saw. saw were different views.
Yes.
Different perspectives. Like,
So he gets up to Doc Brown, and Doc Brown's laying on the parking lot ground there, and he gets to him, and he's like, oh shit, I'm too late again, like he got shot. But then Doc kind of sits himself up like Frankenstein real quick, like, and yeah, like that, yeah. And he like opens up his zipper, and he's got the Kevlar underneath, and you're like, oh, okay. And he's like, what the hell? I thought you didn't read it. And you can see it's all taped up.
yeah,
The
it's all
letter.
taped up.
The letter's all taped up in brown, which they do a really good job of de-aging that piece of paper. Like, it's great, man.
Yeah.
That's details.
I know for its time, like the makeup was pretty good, but watching it again, the aging makeup and
You can see the wrinkles on the neck, like the
they just
process.
don't look. That's prosthetic. It looks
Yeah.
like gelatin or
Yeah.
something. Like it doesn't. Obviously, his parents they had cast like younger versions of them. And today, obviously, you could probably do CGI and make it look really
Yeah.
good, younger or
Yeah.
that. I like that they have
I
the
still,
same actors.
yeah, I'm with you. I
appreciate
appreciate that they worked on aging them and
Yeah.
stuff. That was great.
Even though you know it's prosthetic and makeup, but it's nice that you have the actors. So when you see them in their younger form or you see them age, it's the same actor. So I really
Yeah.
enjoy that. Even though today's standards it doesn't hold up.
There is a level of appreciation.
And this is where we see things are different because Doc Brown takes him home and kind of tells him he's going to go like 30 years into the future and see what's happening. And then he takes off and then he goes home and he wakes up and it's like everything's normal. He falls asleep in his clothes again. He walks out into the kitchen. You notice there's some big changes.
Yeah, the house looks different. Like nicer furniture, cleaner,
yeah.
tidier. Everyone's dressed really well. His brother's
sister
in a
and brother,
suit.
he's like, I don't know if he's a business guy.
Yeah.
And you can hear that like his sister is a playa with the boys. Because I think in the beginning there, she doesn't, I don't even know if she's ever talked to a boy outside
Right,
of her
that's
brothers.
right.
Where this one, like she's, and they're looking good.
See, everyone, you can see that the confidence was built up because his dad's and mom's confidence were built up, and that instilled it in the kids, right?
And the kids, and also like just like the way they live, their livelihood, they're eating like really healthy breakfast. Where you saw in
Yes.
the movie that bowl, what is it, butterscotch?
Something like that, yeah.
He's eating the bowl, and then they have the cake, so you can tell their diet is a
Yeah.
lot different. They're more well off, and then he meets the parents, and then he sees his mom is looking fit, even at her older age. His
Yeah.
dad's looking suave.
Dad's dressed really
dressed up.
awesome, yeah.
Yeah. Then you see the reverse with Biff, which is kind of funny. They changed everyone's fortune, but they made Biff's actually worse and shitty.
Yeah, they definitely degraded Biff quite a bit.
But he's not really a likable character. Like,
No.
To be honest with you, he's not really a redeeming character, but played wonderful by Thomas.
That's right. No, he is awesome as Biff.
Yeah,
So good.
yeah.
Now make like a tree and get out of here. As he said that to Marty and or George in the diner.
The diner.
That was awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. Basically, he gets his truck, his girlfriend.
Yeah, the Toyota 4Runner that or not the 4Runner, but the quarter ton that he was dreaming over.
Yeah.
And you notice how in the garage is parked on
Toyota,
an
yeah.
angle?
It's parked at an
It's
angle.
like, hey, well, no one would ever park it like that, but they wanted to show the truck, right?
They wanted to show the truck, but I
Yeah.
could see that in the 80s with the way things are all cluttered in there. I could see it.
suppose.
Jennifer comes, but also we see that George's dad just published his first novel.
Probably just a new one.
A new one.
I'm assuming he's already successful with
He's already
writing.
He must be successful, so
Yeah.
you assume he's a novelist, or
Yeah.
maybe he freelances. But either way, his parents they're playing tennis. They're
good.
looking good. So things are looking good for the McFlys, right?
They are.
And he's gonna be with his girlfriend, and they're ready to go there. And of course, Doc shows up.
Yep.
And it's a great ending. That in a way, there's a conclusion. You feel satisfied, but there's a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
Like he comes in there, Marty,
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you gotta go there. He's like,
Marty, your kids.
yeah, like Doc Browning, like you figure that to get in character, Christopher Lloyd did a line.
I think so.
Like he's like, okay, hold on a second.
Yeah. Well, come on. I mean, he was like that in Taxi. Like I remember watching Taxi.
Yeah,
he was just like that.
Yeah, he's just yeah. So he does it really well, and then
Yeah.
the movie ends, and they go to the future.
No, what a great ending. That was awesome.
Iconic, because when you hear the Back to the Future, like the score, you know right away this is that movie.
You do.
And it's not just the Huey Lewis, and actually 2 tracks, like the Back in Time's fantastic, and the Power of Love
Yeah.
is pretty cool.
The one thing that when we talk about cliffhangers, I think this is probably one of the best cliffhangers I'd ever seen in my entire life, because as a kid, you're watching this, and then Christopher Lloyd comes at you and says, because Marty says, well, Doc, you don't have enough room to get up to 88 miles an hour. And he's like, well, where we're going, we don't need roads. And like right there. And then, of course, they take off and fly towards the screen, and it ends, right? And you're like, what the hell? Like, what's number 2 going to be like? It's going to be amazing. And they're going to be flying cars and shit. And it just made you like wonder. And you had to sit there for 4 years waiting for number 2 to come out.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's a wicked cliffhanger.
Definitely. definitely. Like, you really anticipated, you couldn't wait for the next adventure.
I could not
with,
wait. So
Marty
excited.
and Doc. One of the best, like, duo on screen, Doc Brown. It's like this, like, you always wonder, why is Marty friends with this guy? How did they meet? Why are there, like, what led to their relationship? Like, I'm
that's a good
curious.
question.
Like, was Doc, like, a teacher at the school at one point? Or, I probably not, but I'm curious of the backstory. I'm sure someone has wrote it. I'm sure there's, like, fan fiction, or there's some type of out there, but you're like, it's weird that this adult guy's hanging out with this high school kid.
Yeah,
It's
if anyone knows out there, please let us know. I'd love to hear it.
Doc Brown's kind of like the Rudy of this story from, like, Monster Squad. He's hanging around these kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. It's a great movie. I love rewatching it. Looking forward to us covering the sequels.
Yes, we will, definitely.
Let's move over to one of our favorite segment.
Did you know? Raz, did you know that in 2010, during a cast reunion, Michael J. Fox said that strangers still call him McFly constantly? Fox said that the most remarkable instance was when he was in a remote jungle in the South Asian country Bhutan, located between China and India. In the eastern Himalayas, a group of Buddhist monks passed him, and one of them looked at Fox and said, "Marty McFly." How insane is that? That in the most remote part of the world that doesn't even speak English, that you would probably never find on a map, you just stumbled upon this and they knew him as Marty McFly.
Well, that shows you the universal touch that this movie has had with the world.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't want to sound like I know everything, but like, name me another movie that could maybe have that impact on the world. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. Other than Star Wars, I guess. You know, there's lots of movies that'll impact people for sure, but this to me is just such an insane revelation.
Well, in the lexicon of iconic characters, and especially like 80s, you can't deny that Back to the Future, Marty McFly and Doc Brown are, you know, iconic characters.
Yeah,
and like, people,
absolutely they are.
You can just show them on there. Most people know who they are, what movie they're from. So yeah, I don't doubt that in a country you wouldn't think that they would know the name or that. Yeah, that just shows you the appeal with how this
just really blew my mind when I heard that. Yeah,
how movies can touch people.
Absolutely.
You know, yes, they're entertainment, and yes, you know, you should be taking them with a grain of salt. People, you know, in a way, they emulate. You can emulate with the character Marty, you know, like that destiny and being something more and changing your future. Like, who hasn't thought about that?
Yeah.
Turk, did you know that Biff's catchphrases, "make like a tree" and "get out of here" and "butthead" were actually improvised by Tom Wilson himself?
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's better when improvisation really works, because you know it's organic, right? It wasn't written down. And did you know that John Lithgow was the studio's first choice for the role of Dr. Emmett Brown, but he turned it down due to a scheduling conflict? Christopher Lloyd was a close second choice, and Bob Gale was just as pleased when Lloyd signed on. Dudley Moore, Jeffrey Tambor, Michael Gross, and Jeff Goldblum were also considered for the role. Pretty cool.
Turk, did you know that Back to the Future screenwriter Bob Gale finally decided to explain the plot hole question about why Marty's parents didn't remember him as the kid in high school who got them together? Bear in mind that George and Lorraine only know Marty Calvin for 8 days when they were 17, and they did not see him every one of those 8 days. So many years later, they still might remember the interesting kid who got them together on their first date. But I would ask anyone to think back in their own high school days and ask themselves how well they remember a kid who might have been at their school for even a semester, or someone who you went out with just one time. If you had no photo reference, after 25 years, you'd probably have just a hazy recollection. So Lorraine and George might think it funny that they once actually met someone named Calvin Klein, and even if they thought their son at age 16 or 17 had some resemblance to him, it wouldn't be a big deal. I bet most of us could look through our high school yearbooks and find photos of our teenage classmates that bear some resemblance to our children. I concur with that.
Yeah,
that
I can see it.
And I like how he actually did explain that, because we as audiences, a lot of times, we love to kind of, when we're criticizing movies, we like point out plot holes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it can be kind of deemed as maybe just an oversight of the writers, or time, or maybe even lazy writing. But a lot of times they're just like, there's no time to really explain it, just go with it and just have fun. And I think that's even with the kind of Oedipus syndrome thing with Marty and his mom. It's just like, I know it can be played like that. It's like, why that? And it can be kind of uncomfortable, but like, they played it innocent, and they're like, well, if you think about it, like the first person in your life that you first emulate and look up to as a child is both your parents.
That's right.
Okay, just before we go there, I think one thing we didn't cover there, and I think this is common knowledge for a lot of fans of the Back to the Future, that yes, Michael J. Fox was the first choice to play Marty, but unfortunately scheduling with family ties he couldn't. So they hired Eric Stoltz, and he was to play the character, but through whatever shooting, when they looked at the dailies, they decided because Eric Stoltz could not play the comedic part of it. He was like a method actor, and so Eric Stoltz just wasn't right for the part. But it's interesting, Eric Stoltz, Michael J. Fox actually resemble each other kind of facially if you look at them.
They do, but Michael J. Fox is more animated in his facial movements and stuff. He's just a more likable guy.
And I think it works better that Michael J. Fox is kind of a shorter person, because like his performance is bigger than life, and it works really well. I think if you would have got someone bigger, taller, it just wouldn't work. But with Michael J. Fox, Michael J. Fox is perfect for this. This is one of those movies that you could say he was born to play, because I can't think of anyone else playing him. And maybe it's because we were so programmed, we watched him. But
I agree. I think also maybe smaller kids out there could maybe see Michael J. Fox as like to look up to him, like, hey, like little kids are feisty and can fight back, and aren't just like inferior to bigger people.
I think that's going to kind of end our Back to the Future Retro Roundtable. I just want to say it's a great watch. Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, all the actors were awesome. Again, I want to do a 10 toes up salute to both Claudia Wells and Leah Thompson. And it's kind of interesting, Claudia Wells, who obviously only played Jennifer in one movie, and she was later replaced by Elizabeth Shue.
Swing!
I find the younger version of her in this, I found her a lot hotter than Elizabeth Shue, but I find it interesting age-wise. Elizabeth Shue has aged quite well compared to Claudia Wells, and I mean again, I'm not trying to take a dump on them. It's just, it happens to all of us. It's a little bit of Raz tidbit there.
All right.
Unneeded, but I'm giving it to the audience anyways.
All right. Well, that was a great rewatch. So I can't wait to do more. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
If you want to see more videos like this, help us out by subscribing and liking our videos. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback in our comment section. But wait, there's more. You can also watch us on either Rumble and Odyssey. For those who prefer podcasting audio experience, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Heart Radio, Audible, and Amazon Music. We appreciate all of your support. Until then, stay vigilant and stay away from all those soy boys.